The federal government's had a much-needed win in the Senate, with one of its controversial IR bills passing the chamber during the early hours of this morning. The Prime Minister, Malcolm Turnbull, flew back into Australia from an overseas summit just in time to trumpet the success. He says it shows the government can successfully negotiate with the Senate crossbench to deliver on the coalition's election promises. But the lustre of that win was dulled a little, with 2 National Party MPs crossing the floor and 3 ministers abstaining on a vote to lift a ban on the controversial Adler shotgun. Here's political correspondent Sabra Lane.
Fresh from a 20-hour flight from Peru and crossing different time zones, it's perhaps not surprising the Prime Minister had to check the time before revelling in his government's big win.
Well, good afternoon, and I'm here with the Employment Minister, Senator Cash, in the wake of her great success. This is a vitally important economic reform.
Malcolm Turnbull and the Employment Minister were full of praise for the Senate crossbench, which helped pass one of 2 controversial industrial relations bills the government used to call this year's double dissolution election.
This was a great example of the Parliament working. We've said we're leading, we're governing, we're delivering. And last night, this was a case of delivery. Very constructive cooperation.
Can I thank the Senate crossbench for working constructively with myself and the government to ensure that this vital piece of legislation passed the Senate.
The government will now focus on getting its other contentious bill through, the restoration of the building watchdog, the Australian Building and Construction Commission.
As I've always said, I don't comment on crossbench negotiation, but I have been very impressed with the way the crossbench have approached both the legislation that passed through the Senate last night and the legislation to restore the Australian Building and Construction Commission.
There were jubilant scenes when the vote finally happened in the early hours this morning as the Senate passed the Registered Organisations Bill, which will see improved accountability measures to tackle union misconduct.
Order there being 33 ayes and 30 noes. The matter is resolved in the affirmative. I call the clerk.
Senators Xenophon and Hinch agreed to vote with the coalition after it agreed to increased protections for union whistleblowers, which might be extended to public and private sectors in 18 months.
This goes further, much further than anything we have ever done before.
Senator Xenophon and I are rightly proud of what could be the best whistleblower protection in the world. It would cover anonymity, compensation and protection. And even though it now deals specifically with unions, as he said, it must in the near future be extended with the same powers and the same protections to whistleblowers in the corporate sector. And that is vital.
After a short sleep, Senators Xenophon and Hinch fronted the media to defend their deal amid warnings from Labor that the government might walk away from its agreement to extend whistleblower protections.
Hell hath no fury like a crossbencher scorned.
If they renege on this, we'll come after them. And we've got 4 votes there to come after them between us.
The government's win was tempered by disunity in the Senate on a vote to lift the importation ban on the Adler shotgun, put forward by Liberal Democrat David Leyonhjelm. National Senators John Williams and Bridget McKenzie sat with the One Nation bloc to vote in favour of lifting the ban, effectively crossing the floor against the government's stated position. Look closely as Minister Arthur Sinodinos walks past his colleagues and appears to do a double take as he realises they're splitting from the coalition.
Not a big decision at all. I'm a humble backbencher, and different if you are a cabinet minister or out in the outer ministry. If you cross the floor and vote against your party line, you lose your job. It's just a case of, I've got 2.5 years left in this place, and always try to be honest and stick up for what I believe in. I did the same yesterday.
4 other Nationals, including 3 ministers, Matt Canavan, Fiona Nash and Nigel Scullion, abstained. Senator Williams, who's a farmer, says the issue of the Adler gun is a matter of principle and reflects the views of his rural electorate.
In my case, I thought it was a concern about the tools for trade. I've shot wild pigs. I've used a double-barrel shotgun. I wished I had more shots in the gun when I came across a mob of pigs only a couple of years ago, and I was on the ground not far from the pigs. So it was a tool that I certainly could have done with at that time, but I didn't have one.
Let's go down. Vicky.
Most government and Labor MPs voted together to keep the ban. The Nationals leader and Deputy Prime Minister denies the split's a problem. He's backed by the Prime Minister.
I've had discussions with both Wacker and Bridget, but I respect their rights. I understand their reasoning, and they expressed it, and long may that be the way.
In our parties, backbenchers are able to cross the floor and indeed, have done so, and we respect their right. Unlike the Labor Party, we don't expel people from the coalition parties if they cross the floor.
Publicly, coalition MPs are downplaying the incident. Privately, some confidently say it sets a powerful precedent for backbenchers breaking away from stated cabinet positions, specifically nominating same-sex marriage. There is a view within the coalition the issue will be revisited again next year. Some believe the heat generated during the fractious plebiscite debate will have dissipated by then to allow a considered discussion, enabling a conscience vote. Yet right now, Labor's attempting to apply pressure over last night's split.
Isn't it clear this Prime Minister is so weak, his government is so divided, he can't even keep his cabinet in line?
I cannot claim to be an authority on the practices of the Senate, but my understanding
Members on my left,
is that when there is a vote that has
the member for Lindsay is
support,
warned.
when there is a vote that has the support of both the government and the opposition, the coalition and the Labor Party, it's referred to as a Mickey. And that is a vote which, because it is going to be carried by such an overwhelming majority, front benchers and indeed other members regularly do not attend.
Malcolm Turnbull's also faced questions over Peter Dutton's comments that Malcolm Fraser made a mistake by allowing some Lebanese Muslims into Australia in the 1970s.
Is this the Prime Minister's position, yes or no?
I can well
Member for Ballarat
understand
is
how
warned.
members opposite seek to tear down the Minister for Immigration. They can't stand the fact that he succeeded where they have failed.